Welcome to this week's Death Digest with Paul, Kim, and Steve. Our question for this evening is, does the soul have a physical existence? On the table.
Well, I'm going to take the very controversial stand that it does have a physical existence, that it has an existence that can survive both what we call life and what we call death. And I would call that the soul, that which survives life, the end of life and goes on to and lives after death, and that which is reborn in the next life, in another life. So, not a very sort of a standard Eastern view of things in that regard. But yes, I would say I was reading Deepak Chopra's book on life after death, and he describes the soul as a quantum information system, and I think that's a useful way of describing it. Although I would also describe it as simply coherent energy system, a set of relationships among energy which are embodied at their base level in states of information at the quantum level. So I would say that the soul is basically energy, and it's actually information. It's the kind of energetic system which would enable you to translate a lifetime of experience and concepts and beliefs and happenings into an purely energetic system.
So in that sense, the soul is essentially acquiring information through experience over its lifetime. So it's complexifying, or it's becoming a more complex pattern over time, and that information is retained in death. Do you think that's one of the implications of the theory?
I think that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say that the soul is, to put it in another way, the soul is a kind of memory. The soul has the capacity to experience consciousness, and it has the capacity to remember its experience, and those are the things that the soul is made of. Consciousness and the ability to retain information, and the soul is constantly developing itself by integrating more and more information into a single system to some unknown end. But that, to me, explains, for instance, why we're always craving new experience. Because what we are as creatures, ultimately, what our souls are, and by soul you could also just say that which survives death, that which is us, truly. The soul is always trying to integrate more and more experience and in its memory. So you could also say the soul is conscious memory. And memory has a physical realm to it in the sense that what we're remembering, at least in part, is our lives. So therefore, our soul has to be able to exist on this level in order to retain and integrate those memories.
Yeah, I like that definition, and that it fits well with certain modern theories about the universe, which state that the universe is essentially a system of information, that the amount of information in the system is increasing over time, and that's one of the evolutionary directions of the universe, that it's essentially information or data at its most basic level.
Yeah, that seems to work for me as well. What about you, Kim?
Well, I still have a question of what the soul is and the physical existence. I really don't have anything to say at this time.
Well, I was going to say another thing I like about this quantum energy information definition for the soul is that you think about Einstein's equation E equals mc squared, where energy becomes transmuted into matter and vice versa. And so this implies a certain possibility of reincarnation, where energy can become matter again, and then maybe matter in some organized state eventually dissolves back into energy.
Right. So you're raising the point of different energetic states the soul, quote unquote, can take, different energetic forms, and those energetic forms certainly differ in life, and assuming that you believe in life after death. So, yeah. And the key difference, of course, being that in the former case you have a body, and in the latter case you don't. And that is pretty dualistic kind of thinking. Sort of separates the body on the one hand and the soul on the other hand.
Mm-hmm.
And that way is kind of old-fashioned. But I think that, to me, the key question is how can you envision an energetic state existing as a unit, and also not existing as a unit, but being part of a greater whole, because no energetic state or set of energetic relations can exist entirely apart from the rest of the system.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So...
Why not? Why can't an energetic system be separate?
Well, it depends on what the separating boundaries are that define the system. Energy is particularly tricky, and that depends on where you draw the boundaries, what it's interacting with.
Yeah, who's drawing the boundaries?
Well, that's the thing, and especially if it's a quantum system, then there are no ultimate boundaries for it, because it can be as big as the universe, and then be localized when the quantum potential collapses the wave function. So it's both localized and universal at the same time.
So it's the wave-particle?
Yeah, the wave-particle duality. So in that sense, the soul is both located, but also as big as the universe, and maybe even beyond. And also, quantum systems have the capacity to overlap or superimpose upon one another, which physical systems don't. So therefore, souls can overlap. And it could be a way of explaining maybe information transfer through non-physical means. Maybe soul-to-soul transfer through quantum means.
Right. So what you could say is that the soul actually has an image of what it is, what it believes it is, based on its experience. Those are only actually filters that prevent it, that allow it to keep some coherence, but at the same time enable it to retain its integrity and identity as a soul, but also be a part of the larger system. So you could say the soul is an energetic system which is, in a way, confused as to what it really is, or is trying to learn what it really is.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I would say it might be, rather than confused, it might be localized in a particular physical location, which is the physical body.
It thinks it's localized in the physical body.
Yeah.
And in some respects it is, but in other respects it's, as you're saying, you can have all kinds of transfers of information which are well beyond what you'd ordinarily expect if the soul and was not separate from another soul, or was separate from another soul.
So I'm wondering how the soul can think and have beliefs.
That's a good question.
Well, I would say that concepts and beliefs are simply patterns of energy in the soul, as are thinking processes.
Well, are we thinking from our mind, from our brain? Are we thinking from our souls? Does it have cognitive capacity?
I think that's a good question, is can there be thought or cognition or apprehension without the physical body? Can the soul apprehend its nature without the need of physical means.
Okay, well, we're at the 10-minute mark, so that wraps up our Death Digest for the week of October, what is the date?
October 10th, 2012.
October 10th, 2012.
10-10-12.
So, see you next week.
Bye.